My name is Diana Lopez, and this is Medusa's Awakening Podcast. Trigger warning. This episode might address sensitive subjects that may be distressing for some listeners. Topics discussed include violence, sexual violence, childhood abuse, mental health issues, and substance abuse. Please be mindful of your own well-being while listening. If you find these topics triggering or difficult, seek support from a mental health professional or a trusted individual. We thank you for listening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Medusa's Awakening Podcast. Thank you for joining in again. I am happy to have everybody. So this week's episode is called Surviving Diddy, From Survival to Empowerment, because that's exactly what's going on here. And now I didn't want to hop on here just to do celebrity gossip. That's not what this is going to be about. So there are plenty of other places that you can go. There's especially with a lot of TikToks out there. I read the complaint, so you didn't have to type one. So there you go. You can definitely check those out. I will not be discussing everybody's entire complaint and the allegations that they focused on for those individuals. For the most part, what I want to talk about is this queen by the name of Cassie Ventura. I just want to extend a huge congratulations to her because, honey, you did that shit. And you did that shit. I mean, it takes one person and there would be a domino effect. Now, I completely understand there is a time and place for everything in our lives. We don't do things what we want to do is do things according to how we want to do it. But honestly, I feel like the universe just handles that themselves. This needed to go down in the moment it needed to go down in, and that was now. Because this was something that Sean Combs has been doing for a very long time, decades upon decades. Now, look, I have been a Sean Combs hater since the 90s. Rest in peace, Tupac and Biggie. But I knew this man was not cool. You could just tell time after time in photos after photos when these women would appear next to him with bruises, swollen lips, a swollen face. And he even says in an interview that the reason why he nicknamed himself Puffy was because of how violently mad he gets. So I don't know about anybody else, but I thought he was called Puffy because he smoked too much weed. Maybe he needed to calm his little ass down, but that's neither here nor there. So here we are. So let's go back a little bit. Okay. Let's go back. This is just the recent timeline too, because look, we had Kesha before this, right? And now Kesha's waking up this week talking about fuck P. Diddy. I don't blame her. I know she's been waiting for this, along with everybody else who's been a victim of his. So the recent timeline, for those who don't know, last November 16th, Cassie Ventura filed a civil suit against Sean Combs, alleging years of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse that she said she endured over a decade. Violent behavior, disturbed demands, and was trapped by Combs in a cycle of abuse and sex trafficking. So because of her complaint, then, of course, he wanted to make this go away. And I was praying so hard, do not make this go away. Please don't make this go away. Please let this develop into something. Give his victims a voice. And, she settled out of court because it was a civil suit. She brought a civil suit to sue him for money. But the trolls on the internet, of course, gold digger, she's just doing it for the money. Yes and no. She was also doing it to start the process because she knew, or maybe she didn't know. But I would hope that she had this inkling that people would fall in place, and maybe she didn't, because this took a lot of bravery, especially for somebody so violent. Right? Like, if you were the only one willing to go out and speak up against a powerful celebrity like him that makes people disappear, that was in the complaint. Not Cassie Ventura's. I don't know if that was in Cassie Ventura's complaint, but it was in Don Richards' complaint, and I'll get to that in a minute. But because Cassie had her complaint out in November, she settled for, what was it, maybe like $30 million. But then this gentleman, Rodney, Little Rod Jones Jr., he's a producer out of Chicago, brought a lawsuit earlier this year in February. This was the guidepost for the criminal charges that are being filed against Diddy now. So let me back up really quick, because if you don't know, Sean Combs was indicted on charges of racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution against men and women. So both. There is plenty of men out there that are saying that they were basically his sex slave. So it wasn't just against women. Don Richards, who was a singer on Danity Kane and on Making the Band series, P. Diddy's Making the Band series, also filed her complaint on September 10th. So I think, was that like a week before Diddy was actually arrested? Now, I just want to kind of bring a little bit of her complaint, some of the things that I found very interesting. And I kind of want to make sure that as we are talking about this, have an open mind, because I know there are plenty of people out there that think to themselves, why didn't they just go? Why didn't they just leave? That's just the common question, regardless if we're talking about domestic violence relationships, toxic relationships. It's always, why didn't they just walk away? Why didn't they just leave? And I'm here to tell you that if it was that easy, right? Like, that's all they had to do. That's all I have to do is just get up and walk out. It seems incredibly doable for the people who actually didn't get forced into this. It's always doable to the person who is not the victim. It's always doable to the person from the outside in. So please keep an open mind as we discuss these topics, because it's just not that easy. If it was, don't you think they would? Okay, so let's just get back to this. Okay, so according to Don Richards' complaint, for nearly a decade, Mr. Combs manipulated Miss Richard with mantras that submission to his depraved demands was necessary for career advancement, instilling in her that the belief that such abuse and exploitation were required for female artists to succeed in the music industry. It was not until Miss Ventura's bravery in coming forward that Miss Richard realized her own personal suffering was tied to the many years of abuse by Mr. Combs that had become normalized for her. It goes on to say, as more women courageously come forward, plaintiff has been empowered by this collective strength and now adds her voice to the growing choir of victims bravely sharing their harrowing stories. Together, they seek justice and stand in solidarity as the latest victims of the hashtag Me Too movement in the music industry. Again, Cassie Ventura. Honey, did you know what was going to happen by you doing this? Because I hope you did. I mean, if you didn't, wear that crown proud, girl, and wear your head held high, because it is not every day that somebody can come out of something like this and still stand on their 2 feet and tell the world exactly what happened. The other part of Dawn Richards' complaint, which I found also very interesting, was the fact that she says, and not only her, because it has come out multiple times where even Cassie Ventura, I believe in her complaint, indicates that at times of the abuse by Sean Combs, there were other gentlemen in the room. There were other people in the room when things like that happened. And nobody said a thing. Nobody stood up for her. Nobody told him to back down. Nobody was willing to stand up to him. But Miss Richard was one of the women who witnessed this abuse and went to her and tried to tell her, if you want to go, you let me know. I will help you. And Mr. Combs found out about it and started threatening her life. Do you want to die today? I make N words go missing. I end people. And, if he was going to say something like that to somebody, right? Anybody, I believe that anybody who has worked with him in the music industry would know that he's serious and that he could, because you hear story after story about him trying to end Wendy Williams because she started to talk about him on the radio and about these so-called freak offs. Now, that's the other thing that I'm really kind of irritated about is, and I understand that's what he called them. They were called freak offs, but by the media calling it freak offs, by the police calling it freak offs, by his own lawyer calling it freak offs, is the reason for calling it that is to diminish what is actually going on. It's not like he had a house full of willing participants. Not everybody was a willing participant. They were forced to do this. So by calling it a freak off, it was a freak off. No, you're diminishing exactly the trauma and the turmoil that he put several people through. So let's just call it what it is. He's a predator, right? Now, I've also been seeing in the media some people coming out. Sean Combs had his people, right? They're going to come out, they're going to say all the things. The women are lying. This is just another gold digger moment for these women, whatever, what have you, right? But the one I cannot get away from is this Louisiana rapper dude. Like, I'm West Coast. Okay. I also listen to the East Coast rap. I'm not really down for the some of the Louisiana stuff. I was, right? Master P. I'm dating myself. That's okay. But this dude, you know what? I don't even want to say his name because fuck him. That's why. Um, but he wants to go on Twitter, or he wants to go and he wants to post the following. This was his 2 cents on Diddy getting arrested. I feel Diddy in jail for basically doing what every other famous entertainer has done. Flew B words out for three sums. He's just freakier. We actually go call women prostitutes who fly in willingly to be with their partners for sex. If that's the case, if you've been flued out and had sex, you should be labeled a prostitute. If that's the case, that's 80% of the women reading this. In trafficking, hashtag hell nah. You're a celebrity. You got to fly out. Use your imagination. And how else are you going to get the use your imagination again? You're never in one place. When I saw that video, I was pissed off at this. Like, he really got a problem, but facing life in prison for doing basically what so many other entertainer has done. Hashtag I disagree. Well, sir, this is for you and every single person out there that feels the exact same way. There is a difference in being a willing participant, and there is a difference to being trafficked. And the fact that you don't see that because so many other entertainers are doing it, well, the only thing I really have to say to that is Homeland Security investigators, by all means, it sounds like this person here is more than happy to help you. It sounds like this person here went to some Diddy parties. That's what that sounds like. The misconception of this, just like him, is seen a lot and everywhere. The whole everybody else is doing it defense should be gone out the window by the time you're about what? 17, right? 18. It's called maturing and growing and understanding. I don't doubt that there are people who are generally confused, and that is okay, really. And let's be clear, because they're calling these things freak offs, they're diminishing what actually took place. And so people are confused. People are saying they don't understand. It just sounds like they were all having orgies and everybody was cool with it. But the fact that these women are coming in and filing complaints after having to be silent for so long and telling people that wasn't the case, and you want to go ahead and say, really, that wasn't the case. It's the whole, you don't believe survivors, you don't believe the victim, you blame, it's victim blaming over and over and over again. Now, like I said, I don't doubt that there's people out there that don't really, that they genuinely just don't understand like what is going on. Now, there's this other post that I saw. And at first I kind of wanted to be pissed off, but I was like, you know what? Maybe he genuinely is like really like, please, somebody, he even says, please, somebody explain this to me because I really don't understand. This actor by the name of Faison Love. Now, for many of you who don't recognize the name, he was Big Worm in Friday. And he was in many other shows. Um, Interesting fact about him, I did not know he was Cuban. Didn't know that. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. So he went on and posted a video because he even said, look, I just don't understand this. Now, he goes on to say he does understand, like he saw the video about the whole Cassie Ventura thing, and he even says he should be in jail for that. Like, absolutely should be in jail for that. But he doesn't understand why he's in jail for being freaky. Again, correct. That would be one thing if everybody was a willing participant. And when somebody needs to stop, somebody wants to stop, somebody doesn't want to be there anymore, then they should be able to leave. They should be able to go. But that isn't what happened. That is not what is happening with Sean. Sean was abusive. He was violent, force fed drugs to people so they could become compliant. That's the problem. This in lies the problem. There are plenty of sex workers out there who that is the job that they choose. Fine, because you chose it. That's what you are generally choosing for yourself. This is how I want to make my money. We're not talking about those ones. We are talking about the ones who are being forced. That is the issue. And to force all these women because this is how women make it in the entertainment industry. So this kind of brings about an even larger issue that I also kind of want to discuss is this continuing to bring more and more sexual trauma to our human population that is already alive and well out there. As you can plainly see by the amount of trafficking that's out there, as you can plainly see by this post from this Southern Louisiana rapper, it has the ability to create so many hurt people who continually hurt other people. That's the line, right? So I don't know how Sean Combs grew up. From what I read, like his dad was in some shit. He wound up snitching on a bunch of people and then they killed him. Is that why he's like this? Is that why he's so violent? Is this why he has no conscience about people's lives, feelings, any of that? Who knows? Hurt people, right? So the biggest thing I want to say is if you're going to take anything away from this whole thing with Sean Combs, is these people's ability to start healing has gotten so much greater because of this arrest. Aubrey O'Day, who was also another Danity Kane member, had spoken out on a podcast about how she couldn't wait to be heard. This is for the millions and millions of other women out in the world who have been silenced, who have not been believed, or maybe they're just too ashamed to tell their story, so they would rather just reel in their shit. There is hope. There is hope. There is hope. We are coming out from the dark side of the moon. Now, spiritually, that means you are coming out from the dark and into the light. And people have said over and over, the veil is lifting. The veil is starting to lift. That means we are actually seeing things for what they are. We're no longer blinded by the Hollywood glam, glitz, and fame and all that stuff. We are actually seeing people for who they are. That is what's coming to light. All of this going on right here is all part of the process that leads to bigger and bigger and bigger awakening. And why is that so beautiful? Because people can start healing from this. Cassie Ventura, I don't know if you knew this, but you just created a healing path for so many people, including yourself. And that's just beautiful. That's just downright beautiful. And the men who were also victims of Sean Combs, man, you guys have to take this by the reins and heal. You have to heal from this. And I know everybody has their own path. Nobody has to do shit, right? People can ignore this all day long. They can just go around pretending it didn't exist, drink a fifth of Jack or whatever the fuck you like, and then go about your day. Or you can be empowered to tell your story and to heal. But I know that's so hard. It is so hard to tell your story because you're facing shit. You're facing shit that you're ashamed of. But that's the work. The work is to face the shit you're ashamed of and to realize that you are worthy of healing just like everybody else. Now, like so many of you, I grew up with the Catholic guilt, which I haven't been to church in a minute, and no, I don't feel guilty about it. I kind of did away with all the religious stuff. But the Catholic religion is based on guilt and shame. And I just didn't want to have that anymore. I wanted to be able to forgive myself. And because as me forgiving myself, I can forgive everybody else too. I can forgive other people. And I'm not forgiving other people for them. I'm forgiving them for me. And maybe his victims will one day get there. But it starts here first. It starts with you. That is the importance of Sean Combs getting arrested this week. That is what the vindication that a lot of men and women who were afraid of this man, who were afraid of speaking out about him, can now rest easy. The other part that I want to talk about is the stuff that Diddy's lawyer is saying in the media. And I realize, because I work for a law firm, that he's doing his job. That's what he's getting paid to do. But I hope that other people can see right through it, because, he is trying to do the best for his client. He doesn't want his client sitting in jail. He doesn't want, you know, uh, he wants his client to have a fair trial. So how is he going to start? He's going to start with the public. He's going to start appealing to this poor guy was just doing raunchy sex parties. Why did you have to arrest him? Blah, blah, blah. But to appeal to the media because this man has been violent and abusive and drugging people and forcing them into situations they don't want to be in with promises of a music career, you don't come back to us and say, we have to fight for his bail because these are dangerous and inhumane conditions you guys are having him in. Dude, who are you talking to? Like, seriously, know your audience. I know that you have to say that shit, but like you have to say that shit in front of a judge. Don't come out in the media spilling all this like you don't understand how dangerous and inhumane. We have to get him out on bail. He has to be in home confinement. You know, what are you talking about? You're not going to find no love out here. I know this is all part of it. And I hoped that Sean's victims, after seeing these things, just know this is a man getting paid to do this. He is trying to he's trying to switch the public's perception of his client. And all I can say to you is stand strong in your convictions. You have gotten this far. Keep going. Keep going. Because the more that the veil is lifting, the more that we can also show others who are doing the same thing he's doing. Right? Everybody's concerned that he's going to go around talking about who else was involved, who else could it be. Bring it to light. Now, when I say that, I don't necessarily mean people who are probably there in a capacity where they were willing participants and maybe doing stuff with another willing participant. And you had no idea what was actually going on. You had no idea about the other stuff that was going on. So, and that I can see. That I can see. People being invited to Diddy parties, getting caught up in it all, but not really understanding. But with that being said, also, it has been said for years about these Diddy parties. People have been talking about this for years. And again, time after time, seeing photos of his girlfriends, his kids' mothers, fat lip, bruises. It was time for him to be stopped. Sean Combs is a predator. And the fact that so many people helped him, it's not very shocking to me, but at the same time, it's just very disturbing, right? It's very concerning. Because what people are saying is money is so much more important than the human life. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where things have start to change. We need to do this for ourselves. We need to do this for other people. So again, I hope that you all find, especially those who have ever been a victim, I hope that you find the empowerment and feel this empowerment, even if you are not a Diddy victim, but have been a victim in some form of, or you're a survivor of this type of abuse, sex trafficking, domestic violence. And people, there is an intersection between domestic violence and trafficking, as you can see here. That's exactly what this is. These were women that were in relationships with him. That's what that looks like. When people talk about the intersection between domestic violence and sex trafficking, that's what that looks like. You're now witnessing it. So now we have no excuse, right? Now we have no excuse. We're seeing all this unfold in front of us. We have no excuse but to get educated and to start understanding people where they are. The judgments have got to stop. They're not helpful and they're not helping. The judgments don't necessarily allow people to heal. The judgments make people feel shame. So, what would you rather do? Have people heal, or would you rather just judge them all day long? I hope that you guys can appreciate this episode and find it from it whatever it is that you need.
There is one last thing I would like to leave you with. While the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs on charges of sex trafficking is disturbing, it is leading to a lot of necessary discussions. This is the time for the media to take advantage of this headline and really dive in and start conversations, and not just of the injustice Sean Combs forced upon his victims, but instead bring to light about how important it is to have access to resources so that these survivors can create a path to healing, or how there is a lack of resources for male survivors of sexual assault. Instead, the media wants to play into this travesty by posting articles about what Diddy had for dinner in his first night in jail. Spoiler alert, he is probably eating a bologna sandwich on some dry-ass piece of bread. But honestly, really, do you care? Just like I don't care whether or not he has baby oil listed on his commissary list. We don't need these types of articles taking away from the importance of this conversation. Sean Combs' arrest can bring to light the many issues with human trafficking that the U.S. already has. Why isn't the media taking advantage of this and create conversations about this issue? The focus should turn to the survivors, especially those who have bravely stepped forward to share their stories. We need to support these individuals, not only in their pursuit of justice, but also in their journey toward healing. Their voices are powerful, and by speaking out, they have taken control of a narrative that once rendered them voiceless. This is an opportunity for collective empowerment, where survivors are seen, heard, and given the tools to reclaim their lives. Listen, trauma is neither simple nor linear, but with strong community, therapeutic resources, and the recognition of their courage, survivors can begin to rebuild. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for listening to Medusa's Awakening podcast. Stay up to date on new episodes by following, liking, and subscribing to our pages. We are on Instagram at Medusas_Awakening, on YouTube at Medusa's Awakening, and on TikTok at Awakening_Medusa_podcast.